I'm Nick Altmeyer, linkinglewiscounty.com. We're here today with Lewis County Manager Ryan Piche, and we're here to discuss a little bit about an issue that's come up for the county where the IGT funds, which are the intergovernment transfer funds for the hospital, there's been some auditing and some figures have changed for the last 3 years. And for anyone that's wondering, the IGT funds are kind of a 50-50 match where half of it comes from the state, half of it comes from the county, and it's funds that's provided to the hospital. So Lewis County is in a kind of a unique situation of being a municipality that actually runs a hospital. So that kind of leaves us why we're responsible for some of these payments. So Ryan's going to explain a little bit about what's come up and kind of what it means to the county and the bottom line in the budget.
So let's just talk big picture first here. When you have a publicly owned hospital, usually the reason for that is it's in a region with a payer type and a mix of people that it serves, where a private hospital or a for-profit hospital might not, it might not be profitable for them to be there. So that's why it's owned by the public, so that we can provide a service here that in the private sector might not be able to make ends meet. So it's important to recognize that this money that comes in is from the federal government, and it's specifically for publicly owned hospitals, because the federal government recognizes that in these places, like Lewis County, that are rural and it's hard to have access to health care, if they can't help them out and make them, help them make ends meet, then those folks might not have access to health care at all. So that's the big picture. What's a little bit different this year is that well, let me first say that every year we plan on an amount of intergovernment transfer, IGT, where the federal government passes money down through the state Department of Health. Then based on our statistics of what types of folks have come into our hospital, what types of folks we're serving, and the payer mix, which is essentially, in Lewis County, a lot of Medicaid, a lot of Medicare, and some non-payers, non-insured folks. Based on those statistics, they determine how much of that federal money will flow into the Lewis County General Hospital, and based on that determination, the state and feds provide 50%, and the taxpayers of Lewis County have to provide the other 50%. And typically, it's about $2 million a year in our budget that comes out for a total of $4 million to the hospital. So what's different this year is that the state has done a 3-year look back. So they're going back to 2014, and they've audited those figures, and they've realized that the payer type and the types of folks that we have coming into the Lewis County General Hospital are actually eligible for additional funds. So on one hand, that's a very good thing that we've got additional money coming into Lewis County from the federal government. So I like to think of it, think about the whole United States. Everyone has paid into these funds, and they get to come here to help our community. So that's a good thing. What's a little bit more challenging is that this 3-year look back now, the county has to come up with the other 50%. And for us, that's going to be about $3 million that we've got to come up with, or excuse me, $4 million. $3.9 million. $4 million that we've got to come up with out of pocket. And that's tough because we didn't have it budgeted. We didn't know that the state was going to do a 3-year look back. We're one of only 2 county hospitals in the state, so they don't really consult us when they think about how they're going to audit these funds and how they're going to go about making these adjustments.
And that $4 million is for the last 3 years. So that's for 14-15, 15-16, and 16-17.
Correct. And that's just a catch-up. Correct. That's to get us. So basically what they're saying is we audited 2014 and found that your payer type was more needy. And we're going to adjust your contributions going forward from 15, 16, 17. So the payment we have now is a catch-up payment. Then we're expecting our 2018 regular IGT payment that we did, we're prepared to budget for, is going to be increased as well. So that's another,
which currently was
money.
Budgeted for the $2 million that it normally
and it's going to be,
it'll be closer to $4 million this year.
Correct. So
so you're looking at kind of a $6 million unbudgeted hit altogether.
6.2. million that was unbudgeted that we're going to have to take out of fund balance, which is the county's savings account.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. Luckily, we have been fiscally responsible. We can handle a $6.2 million bill coming in the mail unexpectedly. But it does change, I think, the calculus about how we move forward with some capital projects and things like that. And I think the board is going to have to do a lot of thoughtful contemplation and discussion about how they want to do some things moving forward. But the important thing is that we do have this money coming into our community. The hospital is absolutely a part of the county. It's not like we're giving up money to go someplace else. It's staying here. It's staying within our county departments. And
that's $8 million that'll be in the hospital budget now, because that's $4 million from us from the last year. It's actually $4 million from the state.
Correct. Yeah. So actually, we did have the state lay out how the next 18 months will play out, and it'll be about $15 million for the hospital, which half will come from the county. So great deal for the hospital, and we're certain that they will work with the Board of Legislators and put that to productive use.
I was going to say, have they shared any plans that they have?
Well, they've been talking about the grant that their expansion of the operating room and revamp of those types of services, which are desperately needed over there. So I have no doubt that it'll be put to a positive use.
So $6.5 million coming out of the fund balance, and
6.2, yeah.
6.2, and generally, I think the last I talked to Treasurer O'Brien, we had about 13, just under 13 million.
We had about 14.
About 14.
Yep.
Okay, and I think there's a resolution from I don't know how far back it goes, but saying that $10 million has to remain in the fund balance.
Well, you typically want to hang on to about 10% at the minimum. Most fund balance policies that you see that cities and counties have, want to keep a minimum of 10%. So for us, our county operations cost $45 million annually. So 10% would be $4.5 million. So we're clearly over that bar. The issue is when you add the hospital's operations, which is $70 million. So 70 plus 45, you've got to get. That's where we get the 11. The $11 million that we typically like to hold on to. But you've got to understand that the hospital also has a fund balance, and their fund balance right now is far more than the $7 million that they would need in terms of their obligation. So in terms of the big picture, we're still in good financial position without a doubt. But it does change the calculus, I think, a little bit about how we think about capital projects going forward, and also next year when we look at the budget with this new increased rate of IGT, we've got to come up in 2019 with about another $1 million. So I don't think we could find $1 million worth of cuts in county programs. So it's going to be a discussion about where we get those extra funds, and